This is lamb. This is a boneless leg of lamb that I bought at Sam's Wholesale Club 2 days ago. New Zealand, of course. And then that's a rack. There's 8. Well, this end one doesn't really count. Let's see, 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there's actually 10 bones in here. You could do 5 double chops for 10 individuals. But it's got a nice little fat cap here. If I was gonna prep these, I would probably cut them into individuals or doubles, just kind of depending on who's coming to dinner. Shondell and I couldn't eat this whole thing the way we eat mostly veg these days. We could probably do 2 individuals a piece and a bunch of veg, salad, that kind of thing. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna probably prep this later on. I just want to show you the difference. Obviously that's the leg. This is riding up here on the lamb. This is down here in the lamb. But this is what we use for souvlaki and about everything else. This is a really neat product, super clean, don't get me wrong, but it's super expensive as well. This is almost 2 pounds and it costs $28 because for one, it's imported and it's a prime lamb. This one is raised without antibiotics, no added hormones. Really neat product and it's amazing. I've had it at the Grotto. Chef Rodney's prepared it for us down there. I've cooked it myself a few times. I used to do a special at Emilio's back in the day where I grilled a little bit of lamb. And we did lamb at the Plaza, my parents' restaurant back in the day as well. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna trim out this shoulder. So this guy is gonna go back in the fridge. Right here. And these products are neat because they backpack everything. So literally, it's a really tight backpack and you can just throw it in the freezer if you wanted to and pull it back out. My theory on prep is once you get it, go ahead and cut it open and trim it out and then freeze it once it's trimmed out. So you have a more usable product when you're pulling out of the freezer because we backpack here anyway. So I want to take this and break it down, get all the fat off of it and then freeze it, backpack it, and then take it out in little portions like I did with the smoked meats earlier, like we do it with everything else, because we just don't eat that much meat. Thing is, we eat really good meat like this when we do. So Shondell and I will eat about 4 ounces, 5 ounces a piece. This thing weighs 4.5 pounds. So this is a lot of meat for us. It'll go a very long way with our vegetable intake. So in other situations, I'd use gloves, but when we're trimming this finite, I just sharpen my trimming blade. I use my hands better without slick gloves when I'm trimming out proteins like this. I've just washed my hands, getting ready to cut this open, put the bag in the trash, which is right here. So to gather up the juices after I cut this, I've got a cutting board with doubled up paper towels down here. So I'll cut along the seam, I'll pull out the protein, wrap him up in the paper towel to soak up the blood. I'll put the bloody package in there and we'll start trimming. So I don't know how many of you know this, but I was a classically trained chef when I was very young, and my parents had a French restaurant in Eureka Springs, Arkansas, and I grew up, my brother and I grew up in a restaurant. And I learned how to cook from a very young age. One of my first memories with my mom was sitting on the baking table, a wooden baking table. I was about, I don't know, 6, 7 years old. Take that net off, it's just kind of holding everything together. And wrap this guy up to soak up some of that. Anyway, my first memory, back to that. Mom was cooking for Sky Ranch in East Texas. We had just moved there, and she would take me and put me up on the counter while she made puff pastry and or pies for the whole camp. There's over 400 campers at that camp at that time, and she and my parents were the cooks for the whole camp. So they made over 400 meals 3 times a day, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and they did that for about 3 years. Again, I was about, gosh, 6 when we moved out there from Dallas. I was born in Dallas, and they moved us out of Dallas at a young age because we were living kind of in rough part of town. My parents weren't born rich, didn't have rich parents, didn't rely on anybody, they just did their own thing. Something I respect out of my parents. We moved out to Sky Ranch, which is a hell of a experience. All right, so that was one of my first memories out there. So what you do on a leg of lamb is you kind of lay it out, and when it's cold, you know, you can kind of feel where it likes to lay open. So what you've got is you got a lot of thin skin right here. You can leave this because this is actually pretty good fat. If you wanted to, I would take this off, but I really dive in there, man. I get stuff like that cut out. You'll see. And then I pull this entire cap off here. I don't want that fat on there. Now, if you're roasting this whole, you do. You actually want to kind of open this up a little bit more. I would cut it like this and kind of lay it open. I'd lay rosemary, black pepper, garlic, fresh rosemary, olive oil, and salt and pepper inside this thing, and then roll it back up and then tie it with butcher's twine and set it on a roasting rack. I probably hit it about 450 for the first 30 minutes, then lower it down to about 325 for the last hour until I reached an internal temperature of about 125. Pull it out, let it rest, so it got to right at pink. A little bit of blood right in the middle, but really just right at medium is where lamb's at its best. It is the most resilient protein I've ever eaten. It does not dry out like beef and or chicken when you do a second or third cooking on it. All right, so we're just pulling off fat cap right now. So I might get a little quiet because this is something I've done a lot of, and it kind of takes me to my center, my chakra. Cutting meat does. So I've butchered, I don't know how many tons of meat. Gosh, at the Plaza, we were the best steak in Arkansas for 20 years plus. So we did fillets there. Pretty much the only steak we did. We did two of them. We did just a standard fillet with our red wine mushroom sauce. And it was it was considered the best steak in Arkansas, that dish. And then the Wellington we did probably about 10% Wellingtons during the week. And a very tough dish to do on any line. But we did it. So we were a French restaurant and we had really good cooks there. I'm patting myself on the back now. But that dish there was a filet like the other one, seared in a pan with olive oil. But when you were about a third of the way through, you pulled your steak out of the hot oil, put it on a little plate like that, covered it with some of those mushrooms that we used for the first steak, and I wrapped the Wellingtons in puff pastry, a puff pastry square about like that. I would have them sitting in my area, and I'd pull it out per Wellington. On the line now, I'm cooking 17 different things, and I had a sous chef next to me. I would take that puff pastry, wrap it around the filet. If it was a medium rare, I would take it off at like rare and a half, put the mushrooms on, wrap it in the puff pastry, put 3 score lines on top of it, slide it in our 500-degree oven until it browned the puff pastry perfectly. I would then dump the oil out of the pan I was using to sear the steak, and I would put our demi-glace that took over 36 hours into that pan on low heat back on to the stove. And I would get a hot plate and put it down as a landing spot for that Wellington. The Wellington would take about 5 minutes. I'd be turning it. I'd be poking my head in with my tongs and spinning it. So I made sure that I used the hot spots in the oven to make sure that thing was completely brown all the way around it. My demi-glace would be in my pan. I would heat it up, reduce it a little bit, put it in the plate, the done plate for the Wellington. And then I would, at that time, when all that timed out correctly, and I was doing the other 17 million things for the jumbo shrimp, the veal, the duck, the other 16 steaks I had on the stove, the sea bass, all that other stuff that I was cooking at that time, I would find a way to mitigate my time well enough to grab the Wellington that was perfectly done out of the oven, pull it out, stick in that nice sea of sauce on that plate, a little cherry tomato in the oven, or onto the plate and into the window. That Wellington would be flaky and it would be perfectly done inside because I'd had pulled it out the heat correctly to understand the heat going on in the oven to give you a perfectly cooked Wellington every time. I say that. They weren't perfect all the time, but they were perfect a lot of the time. So that was the Wellington story for the Plaza. And I've never had another job, well, besides maybe Wilson Combat, that was as stressful, but as fulfilling as the job at the Plaza. It was back in the day when cooks did a lot. They prepped for 3-4 hours every day before they actually got to cook on the line. That was something that I did, my brother did, all the guys we trained with did, Derek, Donovan, Britt, all those guys that trained out the plaza did that. You know, it was labor intensive. Nowadays, we've got partners, Rodney and Autumn, who own the Grotto in Eureka Springs, and we talk a lot about talent and, you know, how to hire the right people and what we see nowadays in the talent pool. It's coming down the chain now. The lack of, I don't know, hard school that we used to have in my generation. Now you got these kids that are coming up out of CIA, don't even know how to use a trim knife, don't even know how to sharpen their knives. They just want the fame from being a chef, and they want it as fast as they can get it. It's strange. It's a me thing. And well, I never failed in school. They never made me do this in school. It just tells me that they're watering down at the scholastic level in schools has really started to filter into this new generation. Let's just say me generation that I've seen. All right, so now I'm just kind of finding the seams so I can get to the fat and trim it correctly. So I'm letting the meat kind of tell me where to cut it. I just kind of pull and it tells me. You've got to be able to find the end of the silver skin. So I'd kind of search with my blade tip like this and push the meat out of the way into that fat vein or the fat valley. So I'm not cutting the protein, I'm just following the fat so I can know where to section stuff off, and it'll give me a natural path to that silver skin. So I can kind of see where that one comes together there on the tip, and I can probably separate on this back side here. All right, so there's one chunk that I can section out. I'm just using my fingers to kind of see where this stuff's going. Okay. And what we found is that, again, it's super hard to hire nowadays. People are realizing how hard restaurant work is and how little you get paid in the back of the house. So it's very hard to find people willing to take on that skill. There needs to be a change. The front of the house is always killed, while the back of the house, you know, stays 3 times as long and doesn't get paid 1/3 as much as the front of the house. I'm not saying the front of the house isn't skilled and there aren't skilled workers there. There are. It's a different work, no doubt about it, and it takes a special individual to be in front of people and take their crap, especially when it comes to food. And again, this new generation of people that will try to ruin your business by a bad review because of Yelp and all those other BS apps out there that basically people get a voice on and get to tell them how bad their food is when they haven't cooked anything or never will. They have the power to screw up your business. Anyway, I'm ranting. I apologize. I've been bitten by the Yelp thing and I don't appreciate it. Anybody in small business has, I guarantee you, and they're powerless when it comes to Yelp, and that's not right. It's not right. So consider your bad remarks on Yelp next time you decide to do them. Understand who you're hurting. People are working very hard and aren't perfect, but do everything they can to try to be perfect, to give you the experience you want and pay for. So I'm just going through here, cutting off fat as I see it. It'll take me a while to do this, just so you guys know. It's not an easy process, and I'm pretty anal about it. And your fingers will get cold doing this because this is a cold chunk of meat, but that's part of butchering. I can pretty much cut him into strips now. I mean, I could get a little bit more anal here and use the tip of my knife to get underneath this silver. So I gotta give a shout out to my wife today. Today we, I think, finalized our SBA stuff with Arvest. And that means we might, and this is a big might, be covered over the next couple of weeks for our bills at our small business, Elite Vapor Pros Good Bud CBD Dispensary in Harrison, Arkansas. So we're very tentatively happy right now, but it's all because my beautiful wife is a bulldog when it comes to protecting her family and doing the right things for the books and to keep us sustained as a business and a family, because EVP is a family business. Our parents survive off of it, we survive off of it, our kids have survived off of it, so it's kind of a neat day, and I got to give my props to Shondell for everything she's gone through, everything she's done, all the effort she's made over the past 3 weeks since this COVID thing happened, to really be the spear point in protecting our family business. Here's to you, Shondell. I love you very much. All right, so getting down there, I'm getting the tougher pieces of fat I know won't transfer well into any bite. Everything else I leave is purpose left, like this stuff here will melt away, but I'll go ahead and trim it off. Just because, you know me, OCD. There we go. Dig that out of there too. A little bit more there. Okay, that piece is pretty well. I mean, let's get that out of there too, because that's just going to melt away and create a hot spot or a big piece of fat. All right. That chunk there needs to come off, and see if I can get this stuff just pulled off. Boy, it's tough. A little bit of help on that. Yeah. Sounds like Shondell's talking to our daughter upstairs, Alyssa. I hope she's doing well. We love Chris and Alyssa, and they're down in Houston, so our prayers go out to them while they're going through the COVID thing. And Alyssa's in hair and nails. She's she's got a cosmetician, so she's a hair and nail girl, and has gone to school for it and all that fun stuff. And she works at a very nice, posh salon in Houston, and of course that's non-essential, so she's been laid off for a little while yet. She's been going a little bit of cuckoo at home like the rest of us, so it's always good when mama talks to daughter, and those two have been Shondell's close with both of her kids, Kefton and Alyssa, but it's nice to hear her voice knowing she's so far away. Like, I'm sure a lot of you out there are dealing with, you know, your kids living a little bit of a distance away from you too. Our kids, 2 boys live over in Fayetteville, which is an hour and a half away, and Alyssa lives down in Houston, Texas. So yeah, we worry about our kids. 2 boys are 24 and 25. That's Kefton to Austin, and Alyssa's 29, and she's engaged to a gentleman named Christian. Great guy. Love Chris. All right, so we're getting there in the lamb. Just a couple little pieces that I'm gonna pull off here, and then this chunk can go in the to be trimmed or cut into pieces for whatever bin. See this guy right here? Get into him, you gotta really kind of dig and pull, and then grab a hold of him. And careful with your blade tip, but I kind of have a knack for knowing where my knife's going. And I've been cut so many times, guys. Just so you know, when I was back cooking for a living, pretty much got cut every day. Remember counting the scars on the back of my holding hand once, my left hand. Noticeable, documented scars. Pretty incredible. I think I had over 80 that I could see at one time. That's back when my skin was still fresh and all that. But yeah, a lot of scars. Remember, I had a new dishwasher at the plaza, and it was right before shift, and I was trimming out some meat, and I was sharpening my blade like this, and a dishwasher came by and bumped me, and I had a big butcher knife, and I went like that. He bumped me, boom, off the steel right into my thumb, and I've got a really nice scar. I don't know if you can see. Right across the top of it there, it goes like a Harry Potter lightning bolt. Anyway, that's one of my war wounds. All right, so this is a very finite job here, getting this silver skin off the back of this thing because it's so thin. Woo! So silver skin really tests your skills, especially when you understand how to pull meat and what have you away from itself, just so you can get a better purchase. That one's pretty good. This guy here, really, we're gonna try to save it, but it's mostly fat. In fact, best way to do that is just kind of force that silver skin to roll that protein up off there. Okay. That way you get fat off of there. Okay. Last piece. And get that off, clean this valley up a little bit, get the silver off of there, a little bit more silver there. This knife is really nice and sharp, guys, and this is the correct knife to be using for this, so you can really get your blade tip in there. So, last little piece of fat here. This is an awkward piece, so I'm going to clean that away from the main piece so I can get a better view of it. That one looks pretty good. We'll put him in the to be cut bowl. And this guy's our last little piece. I know this is taking a really long time, guys, but that's how long it takes to trim these out, to get them to where they're, fat-free and easy for us to use in the recipes, because Shondale's not big on fat. I understand the value of fat and what it brings as far as flavor, but there's so much flavor in lamb, you really can't use that same analogy. A trimmed piece of lamb has so much flavor. It just inherently has good fat content or flavor content in the meat. It's just amazing. One of my favorite, if not my favorite, proteins right now. Okay. So last little deal here, just kind of search through the fat, make sure we don't cut too much of this flesh. Push that fat off. See that? That way we save that piece of meat, and really that's good fat left on there. If we want to go further, we can. Yep. Okay, so there's a piece, another piece, another piece, one more, a couple little bitty guys that I trimmed, and then the big guy. That one we could get a little bit more anal with if we wanted to. We could pull that off. But you get the idea. We're pretty much trimmed to the place where I'm going to start making everything about that size, and then I'll freeze it. So I'll cut these down into 1-inch pieces and then freeze them, and those will be plenty big enough to get the moisture I want after I pull them out after they're frozen. So there it is, a trimmed leg of lamb, and I'm going to do a little bit more there to be a little bit more anal OCD. There it is. All right, guys. So my trimming a leg of lamb video is now done. It's gonna take a while to upload this. Do me a favor, if you like my videos or like this video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. I've got more content coming. We'll cook this stuff. We'll cook the rack of lamb and I'll video it. And I'm also on Instagram, and I put a lot of my done pictures on Instagram. That's Matt Daddy 2012, MATTDADDY 2012. And you can find me on there, and I've got a lot of content there, and I'm on Facebook as well. So you can follow us there. You can also look up Sauce Fayetteville and follow them on Instagram and Facebook. That's our barbecue restaurant. You can follow Grotto Eureka. That's Grotto and Upstairs Grotto in Eureka Springs. Follow them too. Amazing restaurant, amazing people, some of our best friends in the world. We love them very much, and we want them to be successful. The other ones to look out for are our small businesses is Elite Vapor Pros and Good Bud CBD Dispensary. They're both on Instagram as well. Just look up Good Bud CBD Dispensary and Elite Vapor Pros, and follow us there and give us a like. So we've got a lot of stuff going on. Look forward to seeing you soon, and I'll see you next video. Thanks. Bye. I think.